The Void. Series 1, Episode 4, The Fillim Perspective, by Richard Marcus Powell. Chapter 14. The Black Sun arrived in the Curse system without ceremony. Kerr's system that lay just within Makeen's space and bordered Republic territory, which Mira had to travel through to reach this destination. Mira's quarry, Luca Breon, remained confined in the containment cells in the rear of the ship. He made a racket periodically, but he was running out of energy, and Mira just ignored the noise. With so many captives over the years, it was easy to switch off the cacophony they made. Mira came to Kerr to collect the acquisition fee, which was a bounty by any other term. Only this time, the bounty wasn't to be collected on some colony, but from a rendezvous with another ship. Unusual but not unheard of. A sensor alert pinged on the console and a massive warship dropped out of its slide across the system. It was a Makeen warship and possessed many of the traits the Makeen themselves possessed. It was like a predator, intimidating, and bearing teeth. Not that Mira had anything to fear. To Mira, the Makeen were trusted friends and clients. The Black Sun navigated its way towards the hangar bay, docking with practiced ease. Makeen hangars were similar to standard human hangars, but they were generally longer and less high. You had the nanoswarm shield protecting the entrance, a flat landing surface, and logistical automation. Where it differed was the size of the ships, which had to be bigger, and there was a heavier reliance on bioorganic technology. Much of the automation was bioorganic in nature, resembling creatures more than machines, but machines they were. There was a heavy emphasis on vegetation in the hangar. It was all neatly gardened rather than wild, and kept to specific areas, never causing any blockages. Mira had been on many Makeen ships and was familiar with their aesthetic. Mira stepped off the ship, still in armor, and descended the ramp. It was sweltering, like all Makeen ships, but it didn't bother Mira, whose armor had built-in cooling. There was a welcoming committee of 3 Makeen, 2 flanking the other, who stood slightly ahead. "The grass that bends me never breaks," the head Makeen spoke.
"When the rock falls."
Mira responded. "So, do you have him?"
"Yes."
"Good," the Makeen announced. "After careful observation, Trigo wants to see you." Mira nodded and then returned inside to retrieve Luca Breon. Mira dragged him out of his cell and hurled him down the ramp. He tumbled down, unable to protect himself with his wrists bound, and collapsed in a heap at the bottom. He raised his head, curious to see where he was and why it was so hot. The lead Makeen loomed over him, entering his field of vision. Luca realized. "This is him?"
"That's him,"
Mira repeated. The Makeen checked his own media device. Though it served the same purpose as the human media pad, the design was quite different. Designed to be used with 4 arms, it had multiple interfaces and a screen that curved so that all 3 Makeen eyes could clearly see it. Luca's identity was verified, and the Makeen seemed satisfied. "Doesn't look like much."
"They never do,"
Mira agreed. "Follow me." The triumvirate of Makeen turned and made their way into a huge corridor. Mira hauled Luca to his feet and shoved him forward. "You can't let them have me," Luca protested. "They'll kill me."
"They pay good money for you. Why should I care what happens to you?"
"We're both humans. You can't leave me to face Makeen justice. Humans never get a fair trial from them."
"Just because we are the same species, don't presume I have any sympathies for you,"
Mira replied.
"You're nothing but a fee for me."
Luca yelled at Mira. Mira shoved Luca once more.
"Move!"
They traipsed through the sultry Makeen ship. The huge corridors were lined with vegetation, with some plants even growing into the technology in a symbiotic interface. The technology was similarly large, built for the much larger Makeen. Mira knew how to use it, but it was difficult for a human to use. They just didn't have the reach or strength to do it easily. The Makeen led Mira and Luca Breon into a chamber. Round in nature, it appeared to be more like an amphitheater than a conference room, with room for demonstrations or debate in the middle and a gallery lining the outer rim. In the middle of the amphitheater stood a single Makeen reading a media pad. He stood out among the other Makeen for having a cybernetic middle eye and a purple tattoo along his flanks.
Trigo.
Mira.
This is Luca Breon.
That's nearly all of them now, Trigo sighed.
There's still a few more,
Mira added. More of what? Luca wondered. Butchers of Lyceran, dear boy, Trigo growled. What else in your pathetic history do you think we would be after you for? Lyceran was so long ago. You think we would forget something like that? Trigo responded with controlled fury. You are, or were, Major Luca Breon, one of the commanders on the ground forces that invaded Lysaran Megara. You ordered the deaths of thousands of Makeen on that world. You didn't even give them clean deaths, deciding to toy with them, torturing them. I was just following orders. The pitiful defense of the weak-willed, Trigo demeaned, restraining his anger. Control like this was unusual in the Makeen, especially when dealing with such an emotive subject. Mira could see the triumvirate that they followed was seething with barely repressed fury. If it wasn't for their deference to Trigo, they would have torn Luca apart already. I didn't have a choice. If we don't follow orders, we're tortured or executed ourselves. We know what happened. We have survivor accounts of what happened and surveillance footage, Trigo contested. They depict you and your men reveling in your depravity. Trigo's mouth was now mere inches away from Luca's face, and he could feel his hot breath on him. After our military arrived and chased you out of the system, the Aryans asked us not to respond. They understood our anger, and they knew what it would entail. But one does not say no to the Aryans, Trigo stated. So, we had to suppress that rage and hold on to it. But at the same time, we could not let such an atrocity go unpunished. Trigo moved away from Luca and started pacing around the room, gesturing with his forelimbs. We couldn't respond directly. We'd given our word to the Aryans that there would be no reprisal, no attack on the Teal world. But that didn't mean there wouldn't be some form of vengeance against the architects of the invasion, Trigo explained. Those architects could not all die or disappear at once. That would be suspicious. But if they were to disappear over time, it would look more natural. The others? Not many of you left now, dear boy, Trigo stated. Just a claw full left, though I doubt there was ever a need for the subterfuge. The Aryans are surely aware of it, and they understand us well enough to know we will not let this pass without some modicum of resolution. They know, and their inaction suggests a tacit endorsement. I believe they see it as an acceptable compromise. Trigo slowly worked his way back to the prone Luca. Smart, really. They reign in our anger and prevent a potential war, but allow us to think we're getting our own back and extracting some form of justice, Trigo continued. Now, why would I go to the trouble of telling you all of this? You know why you're here, and from the smell of you, you know what we're going to do with you. The terror Luca Breon was suffering had already caused him to soil himself. He understood his fate. That was evident. He was whimpering, barely able to keep any coherence at all. I just wanted you to know that, from the moment you raised your puny claw to one of my brethren, you were marked, and that nothing was going to stop us from ending up in this place, at this time. It was inevitable. Please don't. This is strong as the mountain Hinnish. His sibling was one of those your men tortured. I'm sorry. Too late for apologies, Sherman. Way too late. Manish lifted Luca up with his forearms and reached forth with one of his clawed middle limbs. He slowly inserted his long claw into Luca. Luca screamed in agony as drawing out the process as much as he could. His teeth, ensuring he could feel every last second of his torment. One of the other Mcken closed in and gulping it down in one swift movement. For the next few seconds, the Mcken over the room, some splattering across Mira's armor. Mira didn't flinch or even move during the evisceration. Now, if you just give me a moment, Mira, I'll authorize the payment for the acquisition, Trigo announced, done with his tormenting.
A fitting end,
Mira Kandor stated. Too merciful, Trigo responded, especially for his blighted kind. Present company excluded, of course. The statement didn't disturb Mira in the slightest. Luca had tortured sapients, and he had not been alone. Mira couldn't blame Trigo for his anger. There, the payment's been authorized and should now be in your account.
It's been a pleasure.
Have you got any leads on those remaining?
Not yet, but I will keep you informed.
By the way, Mira, Corin wants to speak to you.
Personal or professional?
Personal.
Tell him I'll be in touch.
I'll let him know.